What's up, everybody? Can we please talk about UFC 274 coming our way this weekend, headlined by obviously the lightweight title fight between Justin Gaethje and the champion Charles Oliveira. We're going to see if Gaethje can finally get his hands on that title, or if Oliveira is going to turn back another contender. He seems to be doing that a lot lately. You've got Carla Esparza taking on Rose Namajunas to see if she can take that belt off of Rose Namajunas. Honestly, this card is absolutely goddamn ridiculous. It is crotch-slappingly ridiculous. I just cannot understand. Like, it is just fight after fight after fight. I haven't got time to go through every single one of them. If you want to go through every single fight on the card, head over to Full Reptile. I'll put a link up here. Full Reptile, Dan Hardy. He does brilliant breakdowns. He goes through the entire card. Honestly, I'm quite busy. I've been very busy with comedy this week as well. So I'm going to be focusing on 3 fights, because Dan Hardy, he uses his expertise, whereas I like to pick fights how I play poker. I play by my gut, you know? I romanticize things. I play how I feel, and that's why the bets are so goddamn terrible. But there is a lot of research that goes into these as well, to be fair. I do watch a lot of this, and I do watch a lot of these fighters, and so sometimes there are some odds there that are just quite frankly ridiculous. That are worth having a punt on, but it's always for fun. It's what I like to call an MMA scratch card. It's like putting on a scratch card, but you get to watch people punch each other in the face for money whilst you're doing it. Sound good? Let's have a quick look for the Burt Locker Fights in 15 for UFC 274. So, I am going to start off in the light heavyweight division. Now, this is a rematch, actually, from 2014. You've got Ovince St. Preux taking on Mauricio Shogun Rua. Like, legend of the game. Pride legend. Just kind of absolutely ridiculous that he is still going at this point, old Shogun. But the thing is, I call him old Shogun. You think that, yeah, he's going to be like the much older fighter here. No, it's not. There's 1 year between them. Ovince St. Preux is 1 year younger than Shogun Rua. How did that happen? Like, how did St. Preux catch up to Shogun? I don't know. I didn't think that's how age worked. Has Shogun got one of them fucking dodgy Brazilian passports or something? Because it just seems like he's been around since forever. Do you know what I mean? How is he only 41? Or 40? He's 40. Sorry, yeah, my bad. Anyway. This one, relatively easy to pick, I think, because look, Shogun Rua, he's at a size disadvantage. The size and reach, I think it's like a 4-inch reach disadvantage. He's quite, St. Preux is a big lad. He's 6'3", 230 pounds. He walks around at. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, he's got 80-inch reach. His leg reach 45 inches. But I don't think, whilst in the first fight, Ovince St. Preux did win by TKO in round 1, I believe. It was quite a quick one. I just feel like it's possibly going to go slightly differently this time. Although, I think the same person's going to win, because obviously one of my old favourites, Chael P's son, and the P stands for icon, he has a mantra that's usually correct in his defence, like, because his picks are about as good as mine, honestly. Me and Chael, we're like 2 peas in a pod like that, just constantly making absolutely bizarre, terrible picks. But it's fun, do you know what I mean? It's good fun. Anyway, I digress. Basically, the consensus is that 2 fighters rematch. The younger fighter who won the last time, which is Ovince St. Preux, only by 1 year, but he is younger. The younger fighter, if they won last time, they will win the rematch, except quicker. Now, I don't know if it will be quicker, because round 1 is relatively quick, but I don't know where in round 1 it was. I think it might have been quite an early one, if I remember. It was either quite early or quite late. I can't remember. But yeah, either way, I'm going off memory and I'm rambling. But I think it will be slightly differently this time, because I don't... As much as I would love to see Shogun turn back the clock, come out and look sensational, but I don't really see that happening. And Ovince St. Preux, whilst he's a bit hit and miss. Let's be fair. They should call him Ovince Hit and Miss St. Preux. That should be his nickname. because he is. He's very much hit and miss. Sometimes he looks absolutely fantastic, and other times, you know, when he's sparking out Alonso Menefield, go back and watch that. That was fucking brilliant. Absolutely battered him. You know, he's getting Von Flute chokes all over the place as well. They're actually considering renaming that choke the Ovent St. Preux choke, or the OSP choke, because he's done it more than the original guy who named the move. And that's where I'm going with this one, because actually lately, you know, Ovent St. Preux is kind of fallen in love with the submissions over the knockouts in his hands, although I think he does have maybe an advantage on the feet as well, just with his pure length and size. I do like the submission in this one. You're getting about the same odds on the submission as you are on the KO TKO, but I do like the submission on this one. 3.50 for the submission. I feel like, yeah, Ovens, he prefers the submission over the striking these days. We've seen it in his last 6 wins. 4 of them have been by submission, so that tells you all you need to know. And yeah, so I'm going for the submission. 3.50, not too bad. So it's about circa 2.5 to 1. Yeah, not bad at all. That's going on the bet slip. Then the other one that I'm looking at is you know, it's been called the People's Main Event. I'm talking about Michael Chandler against the returning Tony Ferguson. Now, this one is going to be super fun because, look, I, like many others, I'm just dying to see Tony Ferguson back in there. I think that I've gone back and forth on this because I'm not going to backtrack completely on what I've said. I do think that you have to remember when people were so surprised that Justin Gaethje beat him. That was one of the rare picks that I got absolutely spot on because I believe Gaethje was an underdog going into that fight. I believe, because one of my friends actually said that he thought that Tony was going to absolutely murder him. I was like, no, I just don't see it. I think that, you know, Gaethje's going to just piece him up because I think that Tony's just far too hittable. And I maintain that. I do stand by that because when you look at a lot of Tony's fights, especially in like the fights running up to the Gaethje contest, he tends to get hit quite a lot. Even the ones where he won, do you know what I mean? The one against Pettis, you know, he got knocked down like twice in that fight and then knocked Pettis down. Then Pettis had to retire with a broken hand. That fight was not like a domination victory. Do you know what I mean? He was getting caught all the time in that fight. And that is part of Tony. Tony is part of what we love about him, is part of what we hate about. Well, part of what we love about him is that the fights are always exciting. But it's frustrating sometimes when you watch him put himself into positions where he's just getting hurt. Now, I do like that he's taken a year off here. He's taken an entire year, a year and a half actually, I think, since the Charles Oliveira fight, where Charles, quite frankly, just dominated him. Some of the angles that his limbs were at were just quite frankly disgusting. And but he managed to hold out. You know, he managed to tough out to a decision, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that, because you've got a guy in Charles Oliveira who has the most submissions in the history of the UFC, and he had Tony in basically submission positions for the entire fight and wasn't able to submit Tony Ferguson. Now, there has to be some credit for that, because I know Tony Ferguson in the press conference, he seemed to be very upset with Joe Rogan and the commentary team for making it sound like he was a dummy and didn't know what he was doing on the ground because he was just getting absolutely outclassed by Charles Oliveira. But we've got to remember, Oliveira was not able to get that submission, and the fact that Tony was able to resist that for the entire length of the fight kind of shows that, you know, shows something. And I don't think the commentators were being disrespectful to Tony, not intentionally anyway. I know that he seems to have taken it that way, but that's part of the thing about Tony. He seems to have a chip on his shoulder about an awful lot of things. Now the fighter pay thing's coming in, because obviously, you know, the deal is always good enough until it ain't, isn't it? That's one thing that I've been taking away from a lot of these, the fighters that have been coming out and going against Dana White, is that, you know, the deal was good enough when you signed it, but now you're thinking it's not good enough. So it's, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get into the pay debate, not on here, because we've got too much fight to talk about. But I do like that Tony's taken a year and a half off. I'm not sure I completely like where his head's at. He seemed to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Seemed like he was kind of, almost like kind of angry. Like he's talking about, you know, how he didn't like the fact that Michael Chandler jumped the line at lightweight. So, well, what did you want him to do, mate? I mean, you decided to take some time off, rightfully so. That was the correct thing to do. But then, you know, Michael Chandler comes in and knocks out Dan Hooker in spectacular fashion after being Bellator champion for a very long time. What do you want him to do, mate? The division, what, do you want him to just keep everything on ice until you were ready to come back and fight again? The division has to move on. And you weren't even the champion. You can't hold up the division. Do you know what I mean? Like, what did you expect the UFC to do? I don't know what else you want them to do other than, yeah, you put Michael Chandler in that title fight. You know, and then, you know, obviously Chandler's come off a couple of losses here. And this is where I find this one interesting because, look, it wasn't that long ago that it was about 6 months or so that Michael Chandler was in that fight against Justin Gaethje, and he got really battered in that fight. Both of them, you know, dished out some punishment, but definitely, you know, Michael Chandler was on the receiving end of more punishment in that fight than Gaethje, and that was a real tough fight. It was only 6 months ago, right? Tony Ferguson took that nasty beating off of Justin Gaethje, but you also got to remember that, whilst it was one-way traffic and towards the end, that Gaethje-Ferguson fight was tough to watch, you've got to remember that actually, you know, Ferguson did catch Gaethje, like at the end of round 2, I think it was. I haven't rewatched the fight recently, so I do apologise if I've gotten that wrong, but it was definitely near the end of one of the rounds. I believe it was round 2. Ferguson just caught Gaethje with this wonderful uppercut and floored him, and had there been more time left in the round, there may have been an opportunity for Tony Ferguson to get the finish there. So, what I would say is that whilst Tony Ferguson, yes, he got outclassed by Justin Gaethje and he took a real beating. That was quite a long time ago now. He's had time to recover. He then had that fight against Oliveira, and it's not like he took like a concussive beating in that fight. He just got out-grappled on the floor. And, you know, despite his best efforts, Oliveira couldn't quite get that submission. Now, I just think that because of the time off, Tony's going to be in a much better place because he didn't get knocked out against Gaethje, but he did take a lot of concussive shots, and I will concede that. But he didn't get knocked down. He didn't get knocked out. Whereas, Michael Chandler, he didn't get knocked out against Gaethje, but he did take a hell of a beating. And it was far more recently. And look, I quite like Tony in this fight, purely because he's coming in as a pretty sizable underdog. So I am going with Tony, because I just feel like actually he has more ways to win it. Because, you know, like Chandler, he would love to shoot him for a double leg, but then you've got to be really careful because Tony has Darce chokes from positions. He's got positions for Darce chokes that you don't even know about. You know what I mean? He just pulls them out from thin air, which is wonderful. I do feel like Tony Ferguson has more ways to win this fight than Michael Chandler does. Michael Chandler effectively has kind of one main way that he's going to win this fight. And it's a good way, don't get me wrong, because it's that big overhand right. That same one that he caught, I think it was AJ, was it Pitbull he fought in Bellator? Where he hit him with that overhand right. It was just because with Chandler, one of the things about him that's interesting, that kind of allows him to throw that overhand right and land it, is because people think he's shooting in for a double leg. Because actually, he sits about the same kind of height, whether he's shooting in, because he can drop down and either shoot in for those legs, or he can drop down and then power from a leg, spring up and throw that overhand right. And so you think he's going takedown, your hands go down there, but that's not where your hands need to be. Bang! You're taking that overhand right, it's done. Because that's one thing that Michael Chandler has. He has one punch knockout power. Ridiculous power. The guy's built like a tank, right? And that presents a problem because Tony, as I mentioned before, is very hittable. So, look, would it surprise me to see Michael Chandler get the knockout? No. But to summarise, I think that Tony Ferguson, he's taken a break. He's going to come back looking better. I just feel like on the feet, Tony Ferguson attacks from some real crazy angles. Yes, he does get hit, but he's not easy to knock out. Chandler will need all of that power in order to separate Tony from his senses completely. And I feel like if Chandler, gets frustrated on the feet and shoots him for a takedown, or even if Tony gets the takedown, gets it to the floor, I think Tony is going to have a real advantage there, a real advantage. And the submission is quite frankly disrespectful in favour of Tony, considering how good he is at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the Das chokes, just the innovative ways that he can find those submissions. And he's got innovative striking as well, don't get me wrong, but the innovations in the grappling are really something to behold. With that being said, 14-1 on the submission for Tony Ferguson is quite frankly disrespectful, and I want to have a go on that, because you know what? I think Tony Ferguson has a much better chance than 14-1 to submit Michael Chandler. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but for me, that is a value bet if I've ever seen one. 14-1 on Tony Ferguson to get the submission. Let's go. Side note, I would say he's 3-1 just to get the win. That's also a bet well worth putting on, in my opinion. I don't think that Tony is completely done yet. I feel like the losses that he had, whilst they were, the Charles one was one-sided, but there are things you can take away from it, as I mentioned. But yeah, like the fact he didn't get submitted, and the fact that the Gaethje fight was a long time ago. So yeah, we'll see. So yeah. Then we move on to the main event. I've mentioned Justin Gaethje quite a lot in the last one, and Charles Oliveira. The two guys that beat Tony Ferguson will be facing off to battle it out for Charles Oliveira's undisputed lightweight title. This one's going to be a cracking fight. It really is. I mean, look, there are two avenues here. Is Justin Gaethje going to be able to get the knockout, or is Charles Oliveira going to get the submission? I know that Charles Oliveira has said, I'm going to knock Justin Gaethje out. I think that's bullshit. I don't think that Charles Oliveira has any intention of trying to stand with Justin Gaethje to his detriment. I mean, obviously, if the stand-up is going well, because look, Charles Oliveira's stand-up has vastly improved. We cannot forget that. And he will have a significant reach advantage. And his Muay Thai is looking much better as of late. But is that the path of least resistance? I feel like, if the stand-up is going well, then yeah, he might stand up for a bit longer. But I think ultimately it's always going to be stand until you can create a scramble, get a takedown, and find that submission. Because Charles Oliveira has the most submissions in UFC history. That is not by accident. Look, I just feel like Justin Gaethje, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Justin Gaethje can't win this. Obviously he can. This one is close on paper, it's close on the odds, and rightfully so. Because, god damn it, Justin Gaethje is good. I feel like, because as much as I can visualise Charles Oliveira creating those scrambles, getting it to the ground, finding the back and finding the choke, or getting the guillotine, as much as I can visualise that, I can also just as easily visualise Justin Gaethje, chopping Oliveira down with leg kicks, like ruining that movement, and then going in and just landing and listening to Trevor Whitman, because that's been a really big kind of feather in the cap of Justin Gaethje. Trevor Whitman has really helped to organise the chaos that was Justin Gaethje, and that's what you saw against Tony Ferguson, was just the kind of the organised chaos. Like, he really reined him in. Look, you can go wild, but look, you could just pick him apart, and that's where I think those are the two ways that I see this one going. It's either going to be a masterclass by Gaethje on the feet, and you're going to see Charles get knocked out. But you know what? I think that Charles Oliveira, because the thing is like, I don't know if it was Gaethje that said it, or if it was just like a kind of like a clickbaity article. It's probably a clickbaity article. Gaethje probably never said anything of the sort. But I've been seeing a lot of stuff going back and forth of Gaethje saying, but he wouldn't dare stand with me. He wouldn't. He knows that he's got to get it to the ground. He wouldn't dare stand with me. It's like, well, by the same token, mate, you've got to make sure that it stays on the feet, because not being funny, but if it goes to the ground, you haven't got a chance. And it's mixed martial arts. Do you know what I mean? It's not a kind of a question of, oh, well, you know, he doesn't dare stand with me. It's like, well, go fucking kickbox then. Mixed martial arts is not for you. If you think that that fighter is a lesser fighter because they refuse to play to their strengths and only want to play to your strengths, that's stupid. That's a dumb thing to do. In mixed martial arts, you play to your strengths, not to your opponents. And Charles Oliveira is not a dummy. He's not going to play into Gaethje's hands. He's going to look to get the fight to the ground. And we've seen that Gaethje can be taken down. And more importantly, it's not a question. It's not like Charles Oliveira is famous for these, like, you know, these power double legs, right? That's not what he's famous for. Like, at the end of the day, Charles is very good at just... His Muay Thai clinch has gotten far better, and from that clinch, he can create those scrambles, grab a hold of a body lock, get the fight to the ground, because, you know, Gaethje is going to be very hard to take down from a power double. It almost never happens, to be fair, like, other than, I mean, it's the chain wrestling that got him against Khabib, but, you know, Justin Gaethje has very good wrestling, in the same kind of vein that Chuck Liddell kind of set the path. Chuck Liddell used his wrestling defensively, just like Justin Gaethje does. Justin Gaethje is a very, very good wrestler, but he uses it defensively, which means that Charles may have a problem with the direct approach in getting the takedown. And that might be the only thing that really kind of, if Charles is trying to just get direct takedowns and he can't get them, that may sway in favour of Justin Gaethje at that point. However, I do think that there's going to be more that we're going to see, you know, Charles Oliveira engaging in the clinch and getting the takedowns from the clinch. And it's from that point that, you know, we're obviously... Because the genius thing about Charles Oliveira and how he gets his submissions is that, you know, he will wait until his opponent is trying to get up, and he knows where his opponent is going to move, because when it goes to the ground, Charles Oliveira moves ahead of you. He knows where you are going to go before you even know where you're going to go. And that's why he can get those submissions. That's why he has the most submissions in the UFC. And I think that it's going to be another submission on Charles Oliveira's record this week. I really do. Like I said, it's going to be close. This one, really, it's a coin toss. But for me, I have to make a pick. My pick is going to be Charles Oliveira by submission. Now, let's take a look at the betting. So, because the betting, like on Charles Oliveira, I think it's like 2.38 or something like that. Just to get the submission. Like, the odds aren't great on the submission there, because obviously Charles has got the most submissions in UFC history. So the bookies know that, like, likely if he's going to win, he's going to get the submission. It is interesting that Gaethje is an underdog here, though. It's I didn't think. I mean, he's only a slight underdog, to be fair. But anyway, I digress. One of my main bets this week is I'm taking Charles Oliveira by submission, but I'm doubling that up with Tony Ferguson by submission, because if you do that, you're getting 35.63 to 1. That is fucking outrageous. Do you know what I mean? Because like I said, I think that 14 to 1 on the Ferguson submission, I think that's pretty outrageous, honestly. But what I really like to do is sometimes I like my bets to have a theme, because who doesn't love a theme? Am I right? So what I'm doing, I am going with the Triple Crown Submission Special. I'm going Ovince St. Preux by submission, Tony Ferguson by submission, and Charles Oliveira by submission, all on one terrible acca. That is 124.69 to 1. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that bet. But as always, the bets are terrible. So let me know in the comments, who are you going to be betting on? I want to know, who are you betting on? Who do you fancy for these fights tonight? It's going to be a hell of an event. Not tonight, Saturday night. I do apologise. Yeah, and I'm going to be recapping the event once the dust is all settled. I'll be reviewing my bets, seeing which ones came off, and more than likely which ones did not. And yeah, until next time, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.